That breakaway is going to be doomed, but it could well be doomed as close as the last kilometre that they were caught. Just it depends on how much jockeying for position those 6 riders get involved with now. They cannot afford really to start having a little battle and taking a look, because if they do, then they'll be caught.
Yeah, it doesn't mean how much firepower these 6 riders got. Are they going to start messing around together as one unit? They have a chance, but looking at the front of the peloton, it's all strung out primarily because of the corners around the finish. And you know, by seeing the finish, it's going to be the first one round the corner is going to win, just like yesterday. But you see they're taking out the vehicles in between. This gap is coming down very, very quickly now. Mark Christian for Team Wiggins at the front in the blue and the red sleeves. Oh, still trying, making the effort. Somebody going to attack. Marcin Biablocki in One Pro Cycling. He's renowned for having a go, especially when the gap starts to coming down. Never say die type of rider. But the riders in the peloton, it's been led now by Team Dimension Data. Nick Dugo, I think it was at the front. They have got one thing in mind: bring this break back and try and give Cavendish his second stage win.
That is their aim. The aim of these 6 riders is to try and stay out in front. Nobody said that this last circuit was going to be easy. As Brian suggested, it's not all flat, and they're having to take on a few climbs that perhaps they weren't expecting to have to take on earlier on in the day. And some of these riders who are now out the back of the peloton are not really going to be doing anything other than just crossing the line and trying to minimise the damage. Lukas Spodnar from the Verve Active Jet Pro Cycling team trying to battle his way up. 6 kilometres left, under 30 seconds now, the lead between the 6 riders out in front and the chasing peloton.
It just goes to show you how hard this stage is. You know, most of these riders that are getting dropped in the peloton have been sitting in the peloton all day. They very rarely put their nose in the wind, so just goes to show you that this peloton isn't hanging about now. You know, 6 kilometres to go. They want to bring these riders back. We're getting an attack by Androni Giocattoli. Riders are starting to attack in these small inclines. Like we said yesterday, they get maybe 100 metres down the road. There's no one to come past them and give them a turn. They start looking around, their legs start blowing up, and they come back into the fold again.
Daniele Ratto is the Italian rider from Androni Giocattoli, who has made his way out at the front of the peloton, but he's being closed down very, very quickly, or he might just have some company up the front here. Searing past. Another attack made, trying to bridge the gap. We go back out in front to the 6 riders in the lead group. Know that they've got just around 5 kilometres left to run here. Little glance over the shoulder again from Marcin Biablocki, and the One Pro Cycling man is now dropping off, allowing Christian to come through, and then Christian lets Artem Ovchkin take over, the Gazprom man, the Russian individual time trial champion. 5 kilometres left to run, 20 seconds to lead over that group, trying to bridge the gap. Whether they've been chased down or not, we will find out in a few moments' time. And it's CCC Sprandi Polkowice's Joseph Gurney who hits the front, and it's another of his teammates, along with another Gazprom rider here, who are trying to make the gap bridged between the main peloton. At the moment, they've pulled themselves well enough out in front, and it's really hard work. Synergy Baku rider coming as well. Peloton becoming very fractured on this last climb of the day. So splits appearing all over the place.
While still at the front, these 6 riders still working well together. They don't have too much of an advantage, but there doesn't seem to be any coherence work at the front of the peloton. They need to get organised if they want to bring these riders back.
Now the front of the peloton seems to be becoming splintered and fractured due to the severity of the climb that perhaps riders weren't expecting inside the final 5 kilometres. 4 kilometres to go now, and that gap is still at around 20 seconds. And we have to wait and see just who will take on the charge. Christian of Team Wiggins is the man who's leading the way here in this group of 6 riders, and Ovchkin comes up alongside him. 3 kilometres now, and they've levelled out that gap between themselves and the chasing pack. 21 seconds it is, and once again looking as though it was going to be potentially caught inside the last kilometre, and they're now maybe just doing enough to hold themselves back out in front. So much effort being put in, and some of the riders really starting to show that their effort is beginning to really hurt.
The thing is working for them now is all 6 of them are prepared to do the work at the front. If one rider had been sat on and the riders start to attack each other, that gap would they've been caught already. But the thing is, they've decided to stay together, work together, and try and hold off this peloton. It's still going to be very difficult. They seem to be more organised at the front of the peloton now. You can trek with the blue jersey of Nizzolo right towards the front, and we can also see that I Am for the first time are starting to get involved with the chase.
Well, I Am, who's Matteo Palucci, has had a very disappointing opening couple of days. We'll be hoping that they can perhaps springboard their man towards the front. Nizzolo's looking very much more comfortable than Cavendish, who I haven't been able to spot in our recent images. There's the 6-man breakaway. So those little splintered groups that were led off the front have been brought back in by the peloton, but still the breakaway just holding on, and still, as Brian was saying, willing to do the work. The interchange of riders coming to the front to drive the pace along, constantly changing and constantly allowing them to work together. It's been a really diligent effort made by these 6 riders. Gurney of CC Sprandi Polkowice, and you've got Böhm of Badiani, Wiebowski of One Pro Cycling, of Cekin of Gazprom Rusovelo, Christian of Team Wiggins, and Kradek of Weber Active Jet Pro Cycling. And these 6 riders still with the glance over the shoulder from Böhm out in front, and another little glance there would have led him to see that the peloton are still bearing down upon them, but the gap is still just about holding out at around the 15-second mark, and they are now inside 2 kilometers to go. It's 19 seconds the difference between this group and the chasing peloton. Mark Christian with another glance over his shoulder as he prepares to make that final push in towards the finish line. Are they going to do it?
I still think it's going to be very difficult, because as soon as we come down to this part of the course, onto that slight drag up towards the finish, I think it'll be all over for them. So we are on a slight descent, very difficult to eat into that advantage, but the gap is coming down. The more riders towards the front of the peloton starting to get more of an organised chase after we come up that drag where we saw the attacks.
Much flatter land for the riders behind to take on, but that lead is still out 18 seconds, and there's been a spill towards the back. 4 riders down. One of them was David Baer, the Slovenian rider for Adria Mobil, but no more details about who they were. Inside 2 kilometers now, so with just over a kilometer to go, the gap is still at around 15-16 seconds. It's going to be incredibly close indeed. It looks at the moment as though it could be one of those heartbreaking breakaways where they are caught with inside of the finish line, but it gets very tight at that finish line as well, so riders won't want to be taking too many risks. Christian just sits in second place there as Ovchkin comes to take on the pace, and then he's succeeded by Joseph Gurney of Sprandi Polkowice coming to the front, and they continue to just try and pull themselves towards the finish line, which will be drawing them in like a magnet now. It is going to be a very tense finish indeed, but the main peloton are still bearing down upon them. A slight rise now up towards the Flamme Rouge. Mark Christian changes gear and then just pummels forward, trying to do his drag on the front.
Well, this is where the gap will come right down now, but it has been a valiant effort from all 6 working hard together, and it's going to be kind of nail-biting all the way in towards the finish. But we're now starting to see the breakaway start to look at each other. Gap starting to open. You know, the rider from CCC, Sprandi Polkowice, Gurney, is looking to maybe launch something, but you just see the peloton at the bottom of the screen. It's coming down very, very quickly now.
Very quickly indeed, and they are just approaching that final kilometre marker. They're going to get underneath that, still out in front, but they're in. I think that they're going to find their lead whittled away incredibly rapidly, and Still Tinkoff Segafredo by the looks of things at the front, as Marcin Białowski, the Polish rider, puts his hammer down and tries to drag things forward. Böhm's sitting on his shoulder, and they're still working so well, but it is becoming much more fractured from these 6 breakaway riders. And Mark Christian, a little glance over his shoulder to see just how close those riders behind are coming, and then puts his foot down and just tries to drag things forward and maybe break away. Chased very closely there by Gurney. But here, as they approach the final kilometre, they're about to be re-enveloped by the chasing pack. Tinkoff coming through as well. Juraj Sagan, Erik Bashka, and yesterday it was Michał Kolar, of course, who was the successful rider. So inside the 1 kilometre marker, and that is where the end of the breakaway is going to happen. And riders from all the main teams making their way towards the front. The blue jersey sitting there of Nizzolo. Böhm still managing to sit inside. And being dragged along now by Veranda Willem Cycling and Timothy Dupont, of course, who did very well on the opening stage, finishing in 3rd position. Nizzolo sitting in there as well, sort of finish that perhaps he's going to enjoy. Nicola Ruffoni. Bardiani trying to make his way up alongside. Once again, Trek Segafredo are the ones who are going to lead out this particular sprint. Cav sitting in there as well. He's got some work to do. He's sitting in about 7th position as they take the quick right and left-hand turns in towards the finish line. Nizzolo flies to the front, and just as he did on day 1, Giacomo Nizzolo comes out on top on a sprint where he'd seen the finish line first, and he put himself in the perfect position. Congratulations coming in from Matteo Paolucci, who had a much better day after 2 disappointing finishes, but it's the man in the blue jersey who snags the 10 bonus second points. He'll be back in the leader's jersey tomorrow as a consequence, and comes out on top. Giacomo Nizzolo, and it was, Brian, it was almost a carbon copy from the opening day.
Yeah, another good stage win for Trek Segafredo, and Nizzolo took it from the front. Another technical finish, and you know, hats off to them. They got him there at the right time, and you know, it was a bit of, you know, kind of carnage behind. It was all about getting into that technical area, or the technical corners towards the front, right on the front, and Nizzolo did this. You can just see Mark Cavendish a little bit too far back at this moment, trying to be protected by Mark Renshaw. But this moment in time, Veranda Williams had the control, but Trek Segafredo came over the top. Dupont and Nizzolo were kind of pushing a little bit there, but Trek came through, moved over into these section of corners. Veranda Williams there, Paolucci's there also for IAM. Mark Cavendish comes through to maybe grab 4th there, but it was